Something significant is happening in the Pacific Ocean right now, and most people have no idea how rapidly it is developing. Picture this. It is a Tuesday morning somewhere in the Sea of Japan. A Japanese destroyer moves through gray water. On its aft deck sits a containerized weapon system. Two 40-foot steel boxes connected by cables operating with focused electrical energy. A target drone is released into the sky. Seconds later, a beam of invisible light, 100,000 watts of concentrated photons, reaches across the horizon. The drone doesn't explode. It doesn't spiral dramatically into the sea. It simply stops functioning, disabled, neutralized at a cost of just a few dollars. Welcome to the new Pacific strategic competition. While the world's attention has been focused on Ukraine and the Middle East, something substantial is taking shape in East Asia. A triangle of strategic tension. China, Russia, and Japan has reached a point that analysts are calling the most significant geopolitical situation on the planet. And every week it develops further. Stay with us for the next 20 minutes, because what we are about to walk you through will fundamentally change how you understand the next world development. If you haven't subscribed to Bradley Madden yet, now is the perfect time. Press that button and turn on notifications so you never miss an analysis like this one. Let's begin where this story truly starts. Not with Japan's laser test, not with Russian aircraft over the Sea of Japan, but with a single leader's objective and a timeline that has never changed. Xi Jinping does not hide his ambitions. In speech after speech, in official Communist Party documents, in directives communicated through the People's Liberation Army, the message is consistent and clear. Taiwan must be reunified with the mainland. This is described as the essence of China's national revival. And in Xi's worldview, this goal must be achieved by 2049, the 100th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. That is 23 years from today, a countdown with a fixed endpoint. But the military establishment in Beijing is not waiting until 2049 to prepare. According to former commander of U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, Admiral Philip Davidson, China could be ready to pursue its Taiwan objective as early as 2027. That Davidson assessment, as it has come to be known, has shaped American and Japanese defense planning for years. Defense Priorities, a Washington-based research organization, notes that China now has 134 air bases within 1,000 nautical miles of Taiwan, with roughly 650 hardened aircraft shelters already built and ready. This is not a country that is unprepared, and China is clear about what it considers Taiwan's legal status. Even though the People's Republic of China has never governed a single day of Taiwan's modern political life, Beijing views the island as a part of its territory, a region to be unified by diplomacy when possible and by other means if necessary. Taiwan's own defense ministry is not operating under any illusions. Officials there have issued assessments that describe a concerning opening scenario for a potential situation. The first phase would not come with soldiers on beaches. It would come from the sky. Taiwanese officials have indicated that a situation could begin with between 5,000 and 10,000 missiles launched simultaneously. The objective is clear in its simplicity. Disable Taiwan's radars, impact its airfields, affect its command centers, and compromise the island's capabilities completely, all within the first 60 minutes. Rapid operations on a scale not previously seen. Beijing has purpose-built its capabilities for exactly this mission. The DF-15 and DF-16 short-range ballistic missiles are specifically designed to target locations in Taiwan. The CJ-10 is a low-flying, high-speed cruise missile capable of navigating through mountainous terrain to find its targets. And then there is the DF-21D, the system that American naval planners monitor carefully. It is specifically engineered to threaten U.S. aircraft carriers before they can reach the area. China calls it a carrier targeting system. Military analysts call it a significant development. But here's where it gets interesting. Taiwan has not been sitting still. In recent months, Taiwan received its first Harpoon coastal defense systems, and the delivery was substantial. According to defense reporting, the package includes 100 launchers and 400 land-based RGM-84L for Harpoon Block II anti-ship missiles. These systems are forming the backbone of a new coastal warfare command scheduled to become fully operational on January 1st, 2026. This is not a marginal upgrade. It is a structural shift in how Taiwan plans to defend itself. Local commanders equipped with these systems can engage Chinese naval vessels at long range independent of central command authority. Taiwan's defense doctrine has evolved to prioritize immediate response. When a Chinese missile is detected, local commanders do not wait for orders from Taipei. They act. The Harpoon Block II missiles are derived from U.S. Navy technology, incorporating inertial and GPS navigation developed from JDM targeting kits and software from the SLAM-YAR program. Experts have noted that these systems are specifically designed to operate in challenging electronic warfare environments, exactly the kind of signal-contested battlefield that China's PLA has trained to create. And Taiwan's strategy goes beyond missiles. These coastal systems also serve another purpose. They complicate China's ability to quietly affect Taiwan's undersea fiber optic cables, the communications arteries that connect the island to the world. In a situation, those cables are among the first targets. The new coastal warfare command changes that equation. So China's operation plan has become significantly more challenging to execute. That is the goal. But before we go further into the Taiwan theater, you need to understand the northern dimension of this development. Because Japan is not just observing what happens across the Taiwan Strait. It is observing what happens right above its own territory. Here's what happened on August 19, 2025. Russia's Ministry of Defense confirmed that two Tu-95MS nuclear-capable strategic bombers, escorted by Su-35s and Su-30SM fighter jets, conducted a 6-hour patrol over the Sea of Japan. The Kremlin described it as a routine long-range aviation mission, but as reported by Army Recognition, the timing was anything but routine. The patrol came precisely as the United States and South Korea were conducting large-scale joint military exercises. The message was deliberate. This was not a one-time event. Defense Security Asia reported that in January 2025, for Tu-95MS bombers had already conducted a significant patrol near Hokkaido, Japan's northern island. These flights form a consistent pattern, a regular demonstration of nuclear capability aimed directly at Tokyo. The Tu-95MS, known by NATO as the Bear H, is not a system to be dismissed. Each aircraft carries KH-101 nuclear-capable cruise missiles with ranges exceeding 2,500 kilometers. That is enough to reach anywhere in Japan without the aircraft ever leaving international airspace. Japan's Air Self-Defense Force scrambled F-15J interceptors to monitor the formation as it entered Japan's air defense identification zone. Russia approached the boundary and maintained presence. The message from Moscow is explicit. Japan supports Ukraine with resources, materials, and diplomatic coordination against Russia. And Russia is reminding Japan that Tokyo sits well within range of strategic capabilities. This creates what defense analysts describe as a two-direction pressure situation against Japan. China applying pressure from the south, Russia demonstrating presence from the north. For a nation that constitutionally committed to peace in 1945, it is an extraordinary position to be in. And then there is the system that most people do not want to discuss. On November 1st, 2025, Russia launched a new submarine. Not a conventional attack vessel, not a ballistic missile submarine of the kind that has existed for decades. The Khabarovsk, a Project 09851 nuclear-powered special-purpose submarine, was launched at the Sevmash shipyard in Severodvinsk. It exists for one purpose, to carry and deploy the Poseidon II and 39 nuclear torpedo. As detailed in the U.S. Naval Institute's Proceedings Journal in January 2026, the Khabarovsk was designed from scratch around the Poseidon system. It carries 6 of these autonomous nuclear-powered underwater vehicles, each one between 65 and 80 feet long. The Poseidon operates at depths of up to 3,000 feet and speeds estimated at around 70 knots. In October 2025, President Vladimir Putin personally announced a test of the Poseidon's nuclear power unit. stating publicly that Russia had for the first time managed to launch it from a carrier submarine and activate its nuclear power unit under operational conditions. The Poseidon is not designed to disable a ship. It is designed to impact a coastline. Equipped with a nuclear warhead estimated between 2 and 100 megatons by various sources, it is built to detonate near a shoreline, generating a significant radioactive impact capable of rendering coastal areas uninhabitable for generations. Russia is moving this capability into the Pacific. The strategic signal could not be clearer. If you intervene in our interests, we can affect your coastal regions. This is the environment Japan has found itself within. Now, here is where it becomes genuinely remarkable because Japan's response is not concern. It is transformation. For 7 decades, Japan operated under the constraints of its pacifist constitution, a framework born from the conclusion of World War II that formally renounced the right of belligerency. For generations, that constitution was treated as fundamental, defining Japan's international identity as a peaceful trading nation. Defense spending was limited to 1% of GDP. Japan could only defend itself. It could not initiate operations. That framework is now being systematically adjusted. According to Japan's Ministry of Defense, which released its FY 2026 defense plan in late December 2025, Japan's defense-related expenditures are set to rise to approximately 8.81 trillion yen, roughly $56 billion, representing approximately 2% of GDP. As reported by Army Recognition, Japan's defense spending has now increased for 13 consecutive years. Prime Minister Ishiba Shigeru personally advanced the 2% GDP target by 2 full years ahead of schedule. Since 1976, no Japanese cabinet had exceeded the 1% ceiling. That ceiling is now removed. And it is not just the funding. It is what the funding is purchasing. Japan has signed a $1.7 billion contract with the United States government to acquire 400 Tomahawk cruise missiles. As reported by Naval News in January 2024, the contract covers both Block 4 and Block 5 variants, each with a range of 1,600 kilometers. Japan's defense minister at the time of signing was explicit about why the timeline had been accelerated, stating that in light of the increasingly challenging security environment, Japan had determined it was necessary to bring forward its standoff defense capabilities. By fiscal year 2025, 3 Japanese Aegis destroyers, Chokai, Haguro, and Kirishima, had already been modified to launch Tomahawks. 2 more, Myoko and Otago, are being fitted in fiscal year 2026. This is Japan acquiring the ability to reach targets 1,000 miles away while its ships remain safely beyond adversary weapons range. That is a counter-strike capability. Japan now has it. But Tomahawks are just the beginning. Japan is simultaneously developing what it calls the improved Type 12 surface-to-ship missile in multiple variants: ground-launched, ship-launched, and submarine-launched. The ground-launched version tested successfully in the United States in October 2024 and again in summer 2025 has a range exceeding 1,000 kilometers. As USENI News reported, parts of China and North Korea already fall within striking range from deployment sites on Kyushu alone. Beyond that, Japan is developing 2 hypersonic weapons programs, the Hypervelocity Gliding Projectile for Island Defense, which completed its final test launches in summer 2025, and a separate hypersonic missile platform described as flying beyond Mach 5. These weapons are designed to defeat the dense air defense systems that China has spent decades constructing around its naval task forces. And now the laser. As confirmed by Japan's Ministry of Defense on December 2, 2025, and detailed extensively by Naval News and Army Recognition, Japan has installed a 100-kilowatt-class high-energy laser system aboard the experimental test ship JS Asuka at the Isogo shipyard. This system has been in development since 2018 under Japan's Acquisition Technology and Logistics Agency, known as ADLA. The program combines domestically produced 10-kilowatt fiber lasers into a single-focused 100-kilowatt beam housed in 240-foot containerized units. Kawasaki Heavy Industries won the production contract. What makes this system different from anything that came before? The economics. A Patriot missile costs between $3 and $4 million per shot. A standard missile, 3 used for ballistic missile defense, runs even higher. When China plans to deploy thousands of inexpensive drones and cruise missiles in the opening hours of a Taiwan situation, a missile-based defense has a fundamental structural challenge. You run out of interceptors. You simply cannot purchase enough expensive missiles to counter enough inexpensive drones. The economics do not work. A laser fires at the cost of electricity. As ATLA itself stated in program documents, so long as sufficient electrical power is available, the system can continue engaging threats without running out of ammunition. Ground-based testing against small drones and mortar rounds has already confirmed the system's capability. Sea trials aboard JS Osaka are scheduled to begin after February 27, 2026, with live fire tests against drone targets already being contracted for. As noted by Newsweek in December 2025, the U.S. Navy has also forward-deployed the laser-armed destroyer USS Preble to Japan since October 2024. Equipped with a 60-kilowatt Helios system fully integrated into the Aegis combat system, the United States and Japan are now operating directed energy weapons side by side in the Pacific. Japan is also advancing an electromagnetic railgun program. As reported by Interesting Engineering, ATLA conducted the world's first successful ship-mounted railgun firing test from June to early July 2025, with a projectile fired at a real ship target. Japan's future 13D DX destroyer class is planned to carry both railguns and high-powered lasers. According to Janes International, as reported by the National Interest, these systems would be capable of engaging high-speed targets, including incoming hypersonic weapons. If fielded, a single destroyer could fire railgun projectiles at Mach 6, targeting the very threat that China is developing. This is not incremental improvement. This is a fundamental redesign of how Japan intends to defend itself. Make sure you are subscribed to Bradley Madden to keep up with this story as it develops. Activate the bell icon so you don't miss our next analysis. Now, back to the big picture, because Japan is not acting alone. And that is perhaps the most important strategic development of all. America's response to the Pacific situation is playing out on multiple levels simultaneously. U.S. Marines equipped with anti-ship missiles have been stationed on the remote islands of Okinawa, turning the first island chain into what analysts describe as a fortified maritime barrier, a zone that China's Navy cannot pass without significant challenges. Japan's deployment of medium-range surface-to-air missiles on Yonaguni Island, confirmed by Defense Minister Nakayama Gen in November 2025, places Type 03 Chusan batteries on Japan's westernmost territory, just 110 kilometers from Taiwan's eastern coast. Interlocking with PAC, 3 Patriot units on Miyako Island and Aegis destroyers operating in adjacent waters, these systems create overlapping engagement zones from Taiwan to Okinawa. As Army recognition analyzed, Chinese air and naval forces cannot operate freely in that corridor. The strategic alliance in the Pacific is expanding in ways that would have been difficult to imagine 10 years ago. Australia, long content to maintain cautious neutrality toward China while benefiting from the U.S. security relationship, announced in August 2025 that it had ordered 11 improved Mogami-class frigates from Japan's Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. Australia is simultaneously building nuclear-powered submarines under the AUKUS agreement with the United States and the United Kingdom. These Virginia-class boats will patrol the Indo-Pacific and provide alliance partners with deep-water capabilities that China cannot easily counter. South Korea, despite decades of historical tension with Japan rooted in the Second World War, is now forming a closer security alignment with Tokyo against shared challenges from North Korea and an increasingly active Russia. The South Korean KF-21 fighter program represents Seoul's most ambitious indigenous aerospace project, adding another highly capable platform to the regional balance. Even the Philippines, a country that ended U.S. military basing agreements in 1991, has fundamentally reversed course. In April 2025, Reuters reported that Manila received a second batch of BrahMos supersonic anti-ship missiles from India. And in February 2025, Naval News confirmed the Philippines announced plans to procure submarines for the first time in the nation's history. Japan is also in active informal consultations with Manila about exporting Type 03 surface-to-air missile systems, which could extend the defensive network southward into the South China Sea. A democratic network of deterrence is being forged across the Indo-Pacific, stretching from Seoul through Tokyo to Canberra, underpinned by American military power and increasingly capable indigenous forces. And here is the significant observation. Russia's strategy of nuclear signaling and China's military expansion may be the very forces that created this coalition. A size analysis published in late 2025 concluded, Beijing's strategy for the Indo-Pacific is beginning to encounter challenges. Rather than keeping democracies fragmented and mutually cautious, China's military buildup and Russia's nuclear signaling campaign have accelerated the democratic convergence Beijing most wanted to prevent. Historical tensions between Japan and South Korea that persisted for 80 years are being managed. Not out of sentiment, but out of strategic necessity in the face of shared concerns from Pyongyang and Moscow. China's strategy for Taiwan depends on speed. Military analysts have discussed extensively what they describe as Beijing's rapid operation doctrine. China understands that a prolonged situation against the United States and Japan is challenging. Their economy depends on maritime trade. A naval restriction enforced over months would severely impact Chinese industrial output. Therefore, Beijing's plan is to move with overwhelming speed, overcome Taiwan's defenses, establish control of the strait, and present the world with an irreversible situation before American carriers can respond. But the speed window is narrowing. Every Tomahawk deployed to a Japanese destroyer, every laser system undergoing sea trials, every additional Harpoon battery defending Taiwan's coastline, every Type 03 missile battery on Yonaguni, every marine anti-ship missile battery positioned in Okinawa. All of these systems are adding time to the duration it would take China to secure a clean military outcome. And in a situation with this coalition, time equals challenge. The 2023 size analysis on a Taiwan contingency found that in a conventional situation, the United States and its allies could prevent a successful Chinese amphibious operation, but at significant cost. The study reported that in the base case, China would lose approximately 138 ships. Japan's expanding arsenal, its lasers, its hypersonic weapons, its tomahawks, its railgun program is designed to make those Chinese losses even more severe, faster, and from longer range. The question Beijing must answer is this: is unification worth the cost to the PLA Navy? There is one more dimension that demands attention: the electromagnetic and information domain. China is not standing still while Japan installs lasers and orders tomahawks. Beijing has been systematically documenting every aspect of Taiwan's and America's electronic architecture. Drone activities near Taiwanese radar installations, ships conducting surveys of undersea cable routes, electronic warfare exercises timed to coincide with US-Japan joint drills. All of this is intelligence gathering for the first day of a situation. China wants to compromise its opponent's awareness before the first kinetic weapon is fired. Taiwan's 2025 Hongkwang military exercises, as described by Focus Taiwan in April 2025, explicitly trained against this challenge. The drill simulated a scenario in which China began an operation by disguising military forces as civilian vessels and commercial ships, triggering gray zone ambiguity before the situation begins. Taiwan practiced identifying and responding to these deceptions quickly. The decentralized trigger-sensitive response doctrine is not just about missiles. It is about surviving the first hours of confusion when China will try to paralyze decision-making. Russia's contribution to this strategic environment is worth examining carefully because Moscow's role is more complex than simple support for Beijing. Since Russia's military operation in Ukraine in February 2022, Japan has been one of the most consistent providers of material and diplomatic support to Kyiv among Asian democracies. Tokyo has provided billions in financial assistance, maintained sanctions coordination with the G7, and adjusted diplomatic relationships. Moscow has responded methodically. The Tu-95 bomber patrols are one instrument of pressure. The Poseidon program is another more existential signal. And Russia continues to dispute Japanese claims over the Kuril Islands, a territorial disagreement that Moscow can activate or de-emphasize according to its own strategic convenience. The Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, in a detailed January 2025 analysis, noted that Russia's strategic nuclear modernization program is facing serious challenges due to sanctions, component shortages, and the diversion of industrial capacity to the Ukraine situation. The Khabarovsk's Poseidon program has been years behind schedule, but delays do not equal cancellation. Russia launched the submarine on November 1, 2025. The Poseidon is now operational. The program is moving forward. What does all of this mean for the shape of the world over the next decade? Let's be precise about what we know and what we can reasonably project. Japan's defense transformation is continuing. Prime Minister Ishiba has committed to 2% of GDP on defense immediately ahead of schedule. The defense build-up program runs through 2027 and represents the most significant defense enhancement in Japan since the Second World War. A next-generation fighter aircraft is being developed jointly with Italy and the United Kingdom aimed at deployment in 2035. The 13DDX destroyer concept carrying railguns, lasers, and hypersonic interceptors is being actively designed. Japan is not reversing course. Taiwan's coastal defense is being fortified systematically. The Coastal Warfare Command becomes operational in 2026. Harpoon batteries are in place. Type 12 missiles are coming online. Taiwan's forces are training explicitly for a decentralized, resilient, extended resistance operation that would make any Chinese operation politically and militarily challenging. The alliance architecture around China is solidifying. AUKUS submarines will begin rotating through Australian bases in coming years. Japan and South Korea are conducting unprecedented levels of defense cooperation. The Philippines has adjusted its strategic alignment. U.S. Marines with anti-ship missiles are permanent fixtures across the first island chain, and China is aware of all of it. The Beijing government made a decision years ago that Taiwan is worth this cost. Xi Jinping has based his legacy and the Communist Party's legitimacy on eventual reunification. The question is not whether China will attempt this. The question is whether the deterrent architecture being assembled across the Pacific is robust enough to make the cost of attempting it prohibitive. Coastal missile batteries positioned toward the Taiwan Strait. Nuclear bombers flying 6-hour missions over the Sea of Japan. The peaceful nation has transformed. And Beijing and Moscow are now confronting a Pacific that looks fundamentally different from the one they were planning to influence. The situation in Ukraine taught the world a significant lesson. Authoritarian regimes, when they believe the window is open and the cost is acceptable, will use force. Asia has absorbed that lesson faster than almost any other region. Japan absorbed it. South Korea absorbed it. Australia absorbed it. Taiwan absorbed it. Even the Philippines absorbed it. The result is a democratic convergence in the Pacific that nobody, not China, not Russia, not even Washington 10 years ago saw coming at this speed. We will keep tracking every development in this story at Bradley Madden. The Khabarovsk sea trials, the JS Osaka's live fire laser tests, Taiwan's Coastal Warfare Command going operational, Japan's hypersonic missile deployment. Every piece of this puzzle matters, and we will be here to break it down for you. If this analysis gave you a clearer picture of what is happening in the Pacific, share it with someone who needs to understand why this region matters more than the headlines suggest. And make sure you are subscribed to Bradley Madden. This is exactly the kind of deep dive strategic coverage we produce every week. Press the subscribe button, turn on notifications, stay informed because the development in the East is not coming someday. It is already building, and understanding it is the first step to navigating it. Thanks for watching.